Man, hey, my barber was so mad at me. It's been like 2 months since I went to see him, right? So it was like he had to do he said three separate haircuts, right? Because he had to do here, he had to do here, he had to do all of this, right? He said like he had his little checklist and stuff that he got to do. So he hit the one side of the head and then he turned me around. I heard him say, damn. And then he hit the other side of the head. And then he's like, all right, look up. So I look up and he's like, damn. Because, I had on my little whatever, right? And because I was trying to let it grow in a little bit, trying to let it kind of grow in a little bit thicker in certain areas, it just wasn't popping. So, I finally was able to get in there, finally be able to get cleaned up a little bit. And yeah, man, we back to it. Um, I'm really loving the way that this new format is going, right? Especially, I'm loving the idea of being able to check in with y'all at the beginning, check in with y'all before we get into the outlines, before we get into the script and everything I've worked on, to just kind of get some stuff off my chest, right? That way, if you don't want to hear it, you can skip ahead to the intro, skip ahead to the beginning of the actual episode. And I think what's so important about it is because, especially this month, right? When we start looking at the difference between emotional intelligence, we start looking at the difference between mindfulness and productivity. It's like emotional intelligence is, what am I feeling about whatever situation we got going on, about whatever situation that comes to mind to talk about, right? And I think that that's super important for me to bring, especially the stuff that I'm going through, is because I'm in the midst of a lot of these different transformative things that we all want to do, or that we all want to try, or that we all want to try to pick up the different habits and seeing how they go and seeing where they can get us, right? And it's like, right now, like the faithfulness over the outcomes, it's like, okay, so we've gotten a lot of good outcomes. We've gotten a lot of good progress, but like, what does it look like when you're in the middle of it? What does it look like before the things happen, before the harvest comes, when you're in the midst of planting the seeds, like when you're in the midst of doing the work? And then we go to mindfulness. It's like, what am I noticing during those periods? What am I noticing? What am I seeing? How am I shifting? Where's my perspective at? How am I using this to my advantage to plan and think out my next moves, right? How can I change myself from catastrophizing? How can I change myself from negative thought processes to being more positive, being more present, being more accepting, being more working on how we get to the core of what we're trying to do? Evidence gathering, right? And then productivity is like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? What are the next steps? Where do I go from here? How do I keep going during the midst of all these things, right? Man, and I just, I just obviously just so thankful for the opportunity to do this. So thankful for the opportunity to be able to share the things that I've gone through, the things that I'm going through, the things that I went through, and how my mind shifted in the midst of those. It's just amazing. These are the books I'm reading. I got my little self-care for Black men, my little daily whatever jug. I got this one because this looks dope, right? I got back into reading a lot more fiction. One of the things at night, in the morning I do my little daily readings. I got my dailies, whatever. I got my little stoicism. I got my Bible stuff. I got my a Bible study I'm doing with the new church that I'm at, Family Fellowship Church. But at night I'm like, if it ain't nothing on TV or if it ain't a new episode or something, I'm back into fiction right now. I just finished Fourth Wing series because my homegirl recommended it. Obviously, it was kind of, for her demographic, but I know why she recommended it. It's pretty good. Now I'm on this dungeon crawler, Carl, underneath the cover on the hardcover saying, "You will not break me." And I just thought that was dope. So I got it right here for the episode, man. You will not break me. You will not break my mindset, because we have faithfulness over outcomes. And the question we're going to be answering today is, what happens when I start paying attention to the evidence instead of my emotions? When I start paying attention to reality, when I start paying attention to where I've come from, when I start paying attention to how far I've come, when I start paying attention to the changes, when I start paying attention to how things are really shaking out instead of how I feel about stuff, instead of allowing those things to creep in. All right. So let's get into it.
I'm Trevor Turner. Once lost, now living on purpose. I know what it's like to feel locked out of your own potential. This show is for the ones who are ready to take their power back and write a new story 1 hour at a time. You can do it. You can do anything, and you don't need permission. That's why I started the free hour, to give people the space to change their story, to remind them you are not your past, you are not your mistakes, you are not done, you are powerful. You can find freedom, you can find yourself, and you decide what happens next.
Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the free hour. It's your boy Trevor Turner. We're back with another video. We're back with another episode of the free hour ABCs, the ABCs of Tree. And this is mindfulness. This is mindfulness where we learn how to become aware so that we can live intentionally, so that we can live in the present, so that we can live in the now, so that we can start learning how to see the evidence, how to shift our perspectives, how to change our paradigms, our lenses, and think what will allow us to progress. Because what happens when I start paying attention to evidence instead of emotions? Last week in Emotional Intelligence, we talked about faithfulness over outcomes, and the continuation of the letter O for us today in mindfulness is observe. It's learning to see what God is already doing. Sometimes the biggest thing standing between us and hope isn't our circumstances. It's what we've trained ourselves to see. A few weeks ago, I caught myself starting to believe and starting to think about that I wasn't, or I hadn't made a lot of progress. One, it was imposter syndrome. I wasn't feeling qualified to be doing what I'm doing. I was thinking that I was like only one step removed from where I was, right? I think the catalyst of it is I was supposed to be going into Apex to be doing the mentorship program with them, and they disapproved me, or they didn't approve me to go into the facility. They still want to work with me. They're actually getting ready to start bringing the guys out more, bringing them to us so that they can still work with us, and namely me. But the fact that I wasn't approved made me feel like I hadn't come very far, made me feel like I hadn't taken too many steps from where I was. It made me feel like I wasn't very far removed from the person that was sitting in the cell, right? Or the person that had done what I had done to bring myself to that cell. I still have goals that feel really, really far away. I still have a lot of things that I want to accomplish. I still have a lot of prayers that I'm waiting to see answered. But then I had to stop. I had to stop and start looking at my actual life instead of the picture in my head. The crazy part is that the evidence didn't agree with the story that my heart was trying to tell me. The evidence and everything that has happened, even these videos, even the course of what I've been doing, where I stay at my job, the fact that I'm interviewing for a supervisor position, the fact that I even was asked to go into Apex, I was asked to go into MCRP, it shows me that the evidence is different than the story that my heart is trying to tell me, the story that my feelings are trying to tell me. And maybe you've done that too. Maybe you're convinced yourself that you're not growing. Maybe you convince yourself that nothing's happening, that you haven't made any progress, that you haven't done enough. Not because it isn't happening, but because you just stopped paying attention to the right things. You stopped paying attention to the evidence and started paying more attention to your feelings. Sometimes discouragement isn't caused by a lack of progress. It's just caused by a lack of observation. It's caused by an incorrect perspective. It's caused by a blurry lens. It's caused by a cracked paradigm. It's caused by focusing on the wrong things. After the emotional intelligence episode, we realized something, right? We've been letting outcomes determine our identity. And I think a lot of us, that just feels natural, right? Especially coming up in school system the way we do here, especially in the States, right? Your grade is indicative of your effort. Your grade is what you put into it. Whether you pass is up to you completely, right? The outcomes are completely up to what you put into it. And that doesn't prepare you for the real world. That doesn't prepare you to get out here in the real world where you got to deal with other people. You have to deal with attitudes and beliefs and systems and all these other things that aren't going to just respond only to your effort. You can put 100% of effort into something and still fail in the real world. And because we have been letting outcomes determine our identity, like if the job doesn't happen, if the relationship don't work, if the goal takes longer than we expected, we assume that nothing is changing. We assume there's no progress. We assume we haven't done the work. We assume the effort wasn't enough. We assume that we didn't give 100%. That's how most of us measure our lives. Big outcomes, big milestones, big moments, but life rarely changes that way. Transformation usually whispers before it announces itself. Transformation usually whispers before it announces itself, and I can give you a story that just is the epitome of this, right? When I made that decision to change, I didn't get released. I didn't get a better deal. I didn't get out immediately. I didn't go to the places I wanted to go. I got denied for MCRP at first. I got denied for ACP. My family relationships didn't heal automatically overnight. I didn't reconcile with all the people that I had hurt. All of that stuff was just a decision that gave me a sense of freedom, right? But the sense of freedom didn't even come right away. Like all of the results, all of the progress, all of the things, it didn't just come shouting into my life. It was just a whisper of like, I want different. I want better. I'm going to go after it. I'm going to do. But when you're obsessed with outcomes, you become blind to evidence. You're obsessed with outcomes, you become blind to all the steps that you've taken, all the learning that you've done, all the progress that you've tried to make, all the steps that you've taken. But what if the better question isn't, did I get what I wanted? What if it's this one? Who am I becoming while I wait? That changed everything for me. Who am I becoming in this season? And I was listening, I listened to all my motivational videos on the way to work. I listen to audio Bible on the way to work. And then when that's done, I get like maybe 10 minutes in my drive of a motivational video, right? And they talk about like sometimes seasons are just, they're unavoidable. Seasons in your life are unavoidable. You're going to have a season where you harvest. You're going to have a season where you reap. But you're also going to have a season where you sow, and you're going to have a season where you wait. But who are you becoming in the season while you got to wait? Who are you becoming while you're waiting for the breakthrough? Who are you going to be while you're putting the work in? Who are you going to be while that is on the way to you, while the harvest is still growing? Because you can plant the seed, you can water the seed, but God gives the increase. Who are you while God is giving the increase? Who are you while the fruits of your spirit are waiting to ripen? Who are you while all these things are in the works or in the making or getting ready to happen? Who are you becoming? Because that changed everything for me. When I stopped measuring outcomes, I started noticing evidence. I noticed that I actually enjoy Mondays now. I don't live for the weekends. Maybe that's related to my health, because on the weekends, I just be in bed. I just be resting. I feel old on the weekends. But on Monday, I'm energized again. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to get to it. Like I live for being with and being there for and being around and talking to my clients, my people, my coworkers, all of that stuff, right? I live for going to the gym after work. I live for the routine. I live for going to church and doing all these things that I'm doing. I live for my Bible studies. I live for being able to read at night. I don't wait for the weekend to come. And then also one of the things that I noticed, one of the reasons that I didn't get approved for Apex is because there was something that popped up from a long, long time ago, back in Vegas. And it made me feel terrified, right? Because, I'm like, oh, fuck, what is it? Like, damn, like it's not something that I knew about. I get arrested. They don't tell me nothing. I go to prison, they don't tell me nothing. I'm on parole, they don't tell me nothing. I get off parole, they don't tell me nothing. They do my background checks, not only for working at the place I work, but they do my background check to be able to safety at the church. Nothing pops up. But all of a sudden, I'm trying to go into Apex and this thing pops up. So I'm terrified. I'm like, what the fuck is it? I'm hoping it's like a traffic ticket. I'm hoping it's like a cite and release. I'm hoping it's like whatever, right? And I looked it up. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but it's not. is something that I'm gonna have to go and handle. I've already kind of reached out to people, try to get it like handled, but it's not just a traffic ticket. It's some old stuff, man, but it's some stuff. It's some stuff. Once it gets resolved, or once I'm in the process of resolving, I'll be a little bit more open about it. It's not something I want to bring to this, because this is something I already prepared. But the thing about it is that I realized that when it's one of the things that made me feel like I wasn't very far separated from who I was, because that was still there. That was still hanging. That was still on my back. But then I had to take the step back and realize, like, I didn't want to quit. When I saw this thing hang over my head, I saw that I couldn't go into Apex. I saw that that was the situation. I didn't want to quit. I didn't want to go back to what I know, what I'm comfortable with. I didn't want to go back to the old people, places, and things. I just wanted to figure out how I handle it, how I pivot, how I go around, like not go around it, but like how I go about it in the best way, so that I continue to do the work that I'm doing now. And I didn't avoid it. I immediately called over there, like, I had to leave some messages or whatever. I haven't heard back from anybody yet, but I immediately called. As soon as I found out about it, I called it. Before, I'd have been like, fuck no, I'm going back to doing what I do. I'm going back on to whatever, blah, blah, blah. But this time, I didn't. I didn't even think that. It didn't even enter my mind. When I went through the breakup, like, it was really, really difficult for me. It was last year. I didn't want to relapse. I didn't want to drink. I didn't want to do any of those things. Those things were never on my mind. I was just like, well, damn, I don't know enough good coping mechanisms to deal with these new types of feelings and stuff. Before, I was really numb. Before, I had a lot of apathy. Before, I didn't care. Now that I'm going through it, it's like, well, now I need to find different coping mechanisms. I need to get into therapy. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to work out harder. Maybe some boxing, maybe some Muay Thai, right? Maybe something. And I had to take that step back, stop listening to what my heart was telling me. Another failed relationship, still a warrant hanging over your head, another failed venture, this, that, whatever, right? And my mind had to shift, and I start realizing, like, damn, all of this stuff happened and you did not once even think about going back to the old coping, the unhealthy ways. You didn't even think about calling those people, looking for them on social media. That's when I actually started to notice things, right? I noticed that going to work, it doesn't feel like punishment. I love the mentoring. I love building the free hour. I go to the gym because that's what I become. I don't need motivation. Recovery isn't something I'm surviving anymore. It's just a part of my life. It's who I am, and I'm happy. I'm thriving in it, right? It's just becoming the place that I return to. I'm not trying to return to those other things anymore. I'm returning to recovery. I'm returning to this new me. I'm returning to what the future me needs me to be to build tomorrow today, right? Every step that I take today leads up to something tomorrow, and I'm returning to those positive steps. And none of those things happened overnight. None of them happened right away, but all of them happened. It usually happens too slowly to impress you, but it's too consistently to deny. I think that a lot of people that I know have this misconception that this was something that happened very quickly. Because when you're out of sight, out of mind, like, you're gone and then all of a sudden you're back. Like, to them, it's almost as if very little time has passed. But to me, I was there for all them years when I was working on myself. I was there for those years while I was changing. I was there for those years while I was learning. I was there for those years while I was building the person that you see here today. And it didn't happen right away. Like, it was a lot of stumbling blocks. It was a lot of me trying to figure things out. Like, what do I say in these situations? What do I do in these situations? What would the new me think about this? What would the new me want the old me to have done, right? What would I be able to look back on and be like, damn, I'm glad that I did that instead of this. It took a lot of learning, right? But it was really slow to the point where I was just like, damn, like it was almost unnoticeable. It wasn't super impressive. It was just a series of very small choices. But then it's become so consistent that I can't deny it. It's become so consistent that other people see it, to the point where it's like, damn, like, okay, that happened and you didn't do what you didn't do what you used to. Like, damn, who is this person? Who am I talking to? So when the prophet Samuel was sent to anoint Israel as next king, everyone focused on appearances. But God said that the Lord does not see as man sees. Man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. And that's the invitation here. We're learning to look where God looks, not just at outcomes, but at formation. One of the things that I want you to think about, Prophet Samuel was the one who anointed King David, right? The prophet Samuel, when he went and he met Jesse, and he said, bring me your sons because one of your sons is going to be the next king of Israel. He saw the eldest son, and the eldest son is tall, he's big, he's thick, right? He's very handsome, strong, like he looks the part. He said that he looked perfect. He said that to his eye, this was the person who would inspire all the hundreds of thousands of people. This is the one who would inspire Israel. But the Lord does not see as man sees. It wasn't him. It wasn't the next son. It wasn't the next son. It wasn't the next son. It was David. David, who they said was ruddy and good looking, but David, who they also said was very short, very small of stature. David, who wasn't something that would seemingly be a person who would pack such a mighty punch. David, who wouldn't be somebody you would think would be a spiritual giant. David, who you wouldn't think would be able to stand against somebody who was over Shaq's height. David, who didn't really look like much and he didn't really seem like much, but God doesn't look at the outcomes. He just looks at the formation. He looks at the faithfulness. He looks at what you will do. He looks at the effort. And our brains naturally pay attention to problems more than progress. It's called negativity bias. It helped our ancestors survive because noticing danger was more important than noticing comfort. Noticing where you're comfortable was great because your brain is kind of wired to chase pleasure, but your brain is even more wired to avoid pain. That's why fear is such a strong emotion. Fear triggered, tied to your adrenaline, can take your body and make it do amazing things. That's why fear is also tied to anger, because the discomfort, threat, danger, those things were more important than noticing comfort. Comfort was just a whatever thing. But those other discomforting things, those painful things, those fearful things, they could kill you. But today, that same wiring can convince us nothing is changing, even when we're growing. Today, that same wiring can convince us or make us feel like the bear is at home when no one else is there but you. And that research was done by Rick Hansen, synthesizing decades of effective neuroscience research on negativity bias. Research consistently shows negative experiences capture our attention more quickly and are remembered more strongly than positive experiences. Positive changes often require deliberate attention before they're fully recognized and integrated. That's why you can remember the negative about somebody. You can remember when somebody bothered you. You can remember when somebody disrespected you. You can remember when somebody made you mad more often than you can remember all of the times that they didn't. It just means your brain may naturally remember the mistake, the rejection, the missed goal, the missed shot, that person who said no, the person who passed you over, the time you weren't good enough, the time you weren't qualified, while overlooking your consistency, your discipline, your healthier relationships, your peace, your growth, all of the things that you left behind. It's like the thing that we talked about last week. The scoreboard doesn't count all of the times that you didn't call the plug to go get high and relapse. The scoreboard doesn't count all of the times that you didn't do something to somebody. The scoreboard doesn't count all of the times that you went out of your way for somebody else. The scoreboard doesn't count all of the times when you did exactly what you were supposed to do. When you got up on time, when you went to work, when you worked hard, when you went home, when you went to the gym, when you got in bed on time, you got a good night's sleep. The scoreboard doesn't count that, but the scoreboard definitely counts when you didn't get enough sleep. It definitely counts when that job didn't call you back. It definitely counts when all of these things didn't go your way. And that's why we'll overlook all of those things. But mindfulness helps correct that imbalance, not by pretending that life is better than it is, right? It's by finally seeing all of it. It's by shifting that lens, shifting that paradigm, shifting that perspective so that we can get a better angle, so that we can get a better view, so that we can see more of everything that's going on. Because mindfulness is not positive thinking, it's accurate seeing, it's evidence gathering. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately. For years, I'm chasing a different future. For years, I was chasing something different. For years, I was chasing different outcomes. For years, I was trying to build a different person. But now, like, I have to take the step back to look at my life. Like, I'm getting straight A's. I haven't seen anything less than an A since I got out of prison in college. And I used to not be like a very good student. Like, I just wouldn't go to class. Like, I went down to Jackson State back in the early 2000s, and they told me, you got to get up out of here, because I started my gang down there. I was trying to bring guns onto the campus. I'm having people, jumped and all the other shit, right? Now I'm getting straight A's. Now I'm involved in organizations. Now I'm involved in student government. Now I'm trying to actually do things to make other people's experiences better. I actually enjoy going to work at Garden Pathways. I get to mentor people who remind me of the younger me, and I'm building something with the free hour that I believe can outlive me. I'm back in church. I'm consistent in the gym. I'm still in recovery. I don't spend all week waiting for the weekend anymore, and I think that's probably the biggest surprise for me, especially after so many years of oil field work. Hoping for rain, hoping for show up time, hoping that I could call out, hoping I had enough PTO. I think if you would have told the person that I was before I went back to prison, before I got arrested, that any of this was happening, that any of this was even possible, I wouldn't have believed you then. I think that I had such a rock solid belief in myself. I think that I injected such faith in myself. I think that I found acceptance and found presence and found living in the now through being mindful, that I would have believed you that I was able to build this type of life, that I was able to build this type of person, that I was able to build this type of mindset. And that's one of the things that I try to get to the people who remind me of the younger me. Because, when I was in my 20s, like, I wouldn't have believed that this is possible. I wouldn't have believed that I could have felt this good about myself at this age. I wouldn't have believed that I could have felt this good about myself not being in that lifestyle. I wouldn't have believed that there was anything other than what I was doing that was for me. I wouldn't have believed that I could have been all across the world. I wouldn't have believed that any of these good things would be happening to me. But I also wouldn't have believed that I'd have been working on it day in, day out, still making progress, still making steps, still doing all of the stuff that I'm doing every day. I definitely wouldn't have believed that. And these things aren't super out of the norm. They're not super extraordinary. They were just different, but they became ordinary. And that's what transformation looks like. The prayers I was begging God to answer have quietly become my normal life. But if you don't have that mindfulness, if you don't have that perspective, if you aren't able to see the now for what it is and gather the evidence instead of listening to your feelings, you will only remember the new goals that you silently replace those old goals with. Instead of asking what went wrong today, ask what evidence did I see today that I'm becoming the person that I've been praying to become. Track yourself. Check yourself. Write down what feels normal today that once felt impossible. What feels normal for the older, bigger you that felt impossible when you was a kid, that felt impossible when you was a teenager, that felt impossible when you was in the grips of depression, that felt impossible when you was at the bottom of that pit. You'll probably discover more than you expected. The next time you catch yourself saying, I'm not where I want to be, pause and then ask, what am I overlooking here? What am I not paying attention to here? What am I not giving myself credit for here? What am I not noticing about all of this? Maybe faithfulness isn't only about continuing to work. Maybe it's also about learning to recognize what God has already been doing. Maybe it's also about learning to recognize what you have already been doing. Maybe it's also learning how to recognize what you've already been carrying, what you've already been keeping up, what you've already been working day in and day out for, where you've already been grinding, where you've already been completing, where you've already been succeeding. Because when you finally observe your life honestly, you realize something so beautiful. You've been changing this whole time. Not perfectly, not quickly, but faithfully. Not overnight, not even on the timelines that you wanted, but you're changing. Outcomes tell you where you've been, but observation shows you who you're becoming. So let us not become weary in well-doing, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And see, notice Paul here doesn't say to measure the harvest every day. He says to remain faithful, because faithfulness comes before outcomes. Remain faithful in that season where you're waiting on the harvest. Remain faithful after you've planted the seed and watered the seed. Remain faithful in those times when it doesn't look like the stuff is coming into place the way you wanted it to. Remain faithful in those times when you know that the only thing that outcome is hinging on is your effort, mixed with luck, mixed with whatever the environment can bring you, mixed with other people, whatever the case. And the only thing you have to depend upon is your effort. The only thing that you can hang your hat on is what you bring to the table. The only thing that you can hang your hat on is how hard you went that day. Pay attention to that. So if these are the things that I can finally see clearly, what am I responsible for doing next? And that's what we'll be talking about in the productivity episode next. Obedience. See, in emotional intelligence, we was talking about what am I feeling? In mindfulness, I want you to think about what am I noticing? When I'm taking my breaths, when I'm calming myself down, when I'm getting into my body, what are my thoughts going? What are my thoughts directing me towards? What are my thoughts trying to get me to see? What are my emotions trying to get me to skip over? And that's it. This has been your boy Trevor Turner. Thank you again for watching this video. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, man, I appreciate you so much. If you are watching this for the first time and you think that this is something that can be helpful for you whatsoever, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and come back next time for the productivity. All right? Deuces.